You probably still remember legendary characters like Captain Picard or Geordi La Forge, or those stunning moments of discovery that made you feel like you were experiencing those adventures in outer space yourself. A show that changed America. But very few people know that those moments and this show itself once stood in front of an unimaginable decision. Behind those compelling stories were tense negotiations you would never think Star Trek would have to face. And early on, Troi was originally built around an embarrassing idea. If you think you know everything about Star Trek, think again. Here are 20 Star Trek secrets that were kept hidden for decades, secrets that could leave even the most loyal fans disillusioned once they find out. Are you ready to take this trip back in time? Number 20. Gene Roddenberry chose Rick Berman because he was not a Star Trek fan. You probably cannot imagine that Gene Roddenberry, the father of Star Trek, would choose someone who was not even a fan of his own creation to run The Next Generation. Sounds backwards, doesn't it? But it's true. Why would Roddenberry make such an unusual decision? The answer lies in one very specific thing. Berman was not tied to the past. He did not carry the layers of expectation that come with being a lifelong Star Trek fan, so Roddenberry saw in him a fresh perspective, one that was not boxed in by what had already been done. Berman, with his very different approach, brought a breath of fresh air to The Next Generation and helped it grow into an irreplaceable television phenomenon. So was this decision a lucky break or a bold gamble on Roddenberry's part? And there are plenty more surprising stories behind decisions like that. Let's dig into an unexpected rebellion from the show's earliest days. Number 19. Tom Hanks almost played Zefram Cochrane. It sounds crazy, but it's true. Tom Hanks almost played Zefram Cochrane in Star Trek Generations. Just picture it. If Hanks had been Cochrane, we probably would have gotten a very different character, more energetic, more full of enthusiasm. But BGL, a scheduling issue. Hanks could not do it. So James Cromwell stepped in and gave us a calmer, more reflective Zefram Cochrane, exactly the one we saw in the film. Cromwell, with that haunted, melancholy style of his, gave Cochrane a depth that I do not think just anybody could have pulled off. If it had been Hanks, maybe the character would have had a more optimistic spirit, but I honestly think Cromwell was the perfect choice, because he played Cochrane as both slightly hesitant and deeply complicated. What about you, though? What do you think, Tom Hanks or James Cromwell? Who is Zefram Cochrane in your eyes? Go ahead and drop your pick below before we move on to fact number 18. Number 18. TNG was literally built on the bones of old Star Trek sets. Anybody who watched Star Trek The Next Generation was impressed by those creative, ambitious sets, but not many people know that in reality, a lot of them were not brand new at all. TNG was literally built on top of old sets from earlier Star Trek productions. Mike and Denise Okuda called it Star Trek archaeology. That may sound odd, but it was actually a fascinating part of how the series was made. TNG sets were sometimes built over older sets from Star Trek II, or even from Phase 2, a Star Trek project that was ultimately cancelled. In fact, when those sets were taken apart, the production team even found old traces nobody expected to see. Just think about it. A control panel in TNG may once have appeared in Star Trek II, or chairs and details inside the ship could have been reused from the Phase 2 era. These sets were not just refurbished, they carried a little bit of the past with them, as if the legacy of the Star Trek universe kept living on from one film and series to the next. This was not just about reusing resources, it was also a way for Star Trek to keep a strong connection between different generations of the franchise. And have you ever wondered whether those changes did more than affect the sets, whether they also shaped the look of the characters themselves? Number 17. The original Starfleet uniforms were genuinely uncomfortable for the actors. Have you ever thought about the uniforms Picard and the Enterprise crew wore? They look sharp and professional, sure, but don't assume they were comfortable. Those original one-piece spandex uniforms the actors had to wear were a real nightmare for them. Patrick Stewart, for example, was not just dealing with discomfort, he was also having muscle and joint problems because of that costume. In fact, Stewart's agent even had to threaten Paramount with legal action over it. So they finally changed the design from the spandex suit to a two-piece polyester uniform in Season 3. Easier to wear, yes, but it still had problems because the shirt kept riding up every time the actors sat down. Gene Roddenberry could not stand the sight of Picard's shirt looking rumpled, so Stewart got into the habit of yanking it down every time he sat, a move fans jokingly call the Picard maneuver. As a matter of fact, Leonard Nimoy did that too in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, 1982. A tiny detail that somehow became iconic. And honestly, it is not just Star Trek actors who have to suffer through uniforms. A friend of mine, a military veteran, had to use 3 daily uniforms and 2 dress uniforms over 20 years of service. Truth is, uniform changes happen a whole lot faster in Star Trek than they do in real life. Number 16. When the cast decided to campaign for raises, just imagine you are working your tail off on a major project starring in a hit series, and then suddenly there is a negotiation for a raise. But instead of getting paid more money, you get an offer that is completely unexpected. That is what happened to Wil Wheaton, who played Wesley Crusher on Star Trek The Next Generation. When the cast decided to ask for raises, the producers came back with their first offer: promote Wesley to the rank of lieutenant. You would think he was about to get properly compensated, but Wheaton could only laugh. He answered with a joke. "So what am I supposed to tell my landlord when I can't pay the rent? Don't worry, I just got promoted to lieutenant." You would think a promotion would be a fitting reward for all that work on the show, but in the end it did absolutely nothing for Wheaton's finances. And really, it is not like he could use a promotion to pay his rent. Thanks for making Wesley a lieutenant, but the reality was, he still had to deal with real life. And that was not the only interesting thing involving the cast. Let's jump right into number 15. Number 15. Patrick Stewart was convinced the show would fail. You would think Patrick Stewart was always confident and ready for anything, right? But in the early days of Star Trek: The Next Generation, he absolutely did not think the show was going to succeed. As it turns out, Stewart felt deeply uncertain about TNG's future, with all kinds of doubts about whether the show would even continue. That anxiety stands in complete contrast to the image of Picard as a man of total confidence, and it tells you something important: even the most talented people have moments when they doubt themselves while facing something new. But the show overcame all of that and became one of the greatest series of all time. And if you think only the actors were worried about the future, you may be surprised to learn that being mocked can also be a sign of success. And one cast member may have understood that before the rest of us did. Number 14, Jonathan Frakes knew the series had made it when Mad Magazine mocked it. Have you ever wondered how the people behind Star Trek: The Next Generation knew the show had become a success? Was it the ratings? Was it praise from the critics? No, not at all. TNG's success was confirmed in a way you would never expect. Jonathan Frakes, who played Riker, revealed in a 1989 interview with Starlog magazine that he knew the show had made it when Mad Magazine parodied it. You probably would not think of that, would you? And yet, strangely enough, being mocked was a sign of success in the entertainment world. Back in the 80s and 90s, Mad Magazine was famous for parodying hit shows and blockbuster movies. So when Star Trek: The Next Generation got that treatment, Frakes took it as proof that the series had truly broken through even to people who were not Star Trek fans at all. Sometimes being mocked is the measure of success, at least for Star Trek fans. So if a show gets mocked, maybe that is the sign it has really hit big. But TNG did not just make an impression because it was successful, it also had some of its darkest and most delicate secrets hidden away things you would never imagine could happen during production. Number 13. The darkest secret about Deanna Troi. Are you a fan of Deanna Troi? She always comes across as gentle and sensitive, and you probably would not guess that at first, Troi was nothing like what you saw on Star Trek: The Next Generation. The original idea for Troi may surprise you and maybe even shock you. She was described as an alien with extremely unusual physical features. Most notably, she had 4 breasts and was supposed to have an intense sex drive. Yes, that was the original version the creators had in mind. But DC Fontana stepped in immediately and convinced Gene Roddenberry that this idea would not only be hard to pull off, it also did not fit Star Trek's image. The makeup for the character would have been difficult too, and it definitely would have made viewers uncomfortable. In the end, the only element that stayed was the idea that Betazoids could experience stronger emotions in personal relationships once they reached a certain age. That still made her feel distinct within the Star Trek universe, but it no longer went nearly as far as the original idea. Personally, I prefer that change. What about you? Do you think the original idea was more interesting? Let me know down in the comments. Number 12. The transporter effect was created by filming glitter particles stirred in water. When you think of the transporter effect in Star Trek, you probably picture expensive CG right away, don't you? But the truth is, the transporter effect in TNG was not made with CGI at all. It was simply created by filming glitter particles stirred around in water. That's right. A wonderfully simple technique that still produced such a striking, shimmering, dreamlike effect. When those glitter particles were stirred in water, they created soft flowing motion that looked a lot like the transport process itself. That was the production team's creativity at work, helping them make an effect that felt real and looked fantastic without needing complicated technology. So, what do you think about that method? Is it surprising to learn the transporter effect was not CGI? And compared to modern technology, is it easier now to create something more visually impressive? Or does technology sometimes actually take some of the creativity out of filmmaking? That is something worth thinking about too. Number 11. TNG's HD remaster was really more of a reconstruction than a cleanup. You have probably seen the HD version of Star Trek: The Next Generation on Blu-ray, right? But maybe you do not know that the HD remaster was actually a full reconstruction, not just a simple upgrade of the old image. In 2011, CBS announced that it would remaster the show from the original 35mm film negatives. To do that, the team had to rescan nearly 25,000 reels of film, rebuild every detail, and recompose the visual effects from the original large format elements. It was not just time-consuming, it was incredibly complicated. And it did not stop there. New CGI shots were also added, improving the quality of the visual effects. And to give viewers the best possible audio experience, 7.1D TSHD master audio was added as well. So, when you watch TNG on old DVD, old broadcast masters, and the remastered Blu-ray, it feels like you are watching 3 different incarnations of the same series. That is why this remaster project cost more than $12 million US. So now, you have uncovered half of TNG's secrets. Don't hold back on liking this video, because the secrets coming next are definitely going to surprise you even more. Number 10. Most of the cast became lifelong friends. If you're a fan of Star Trek: The Next Generation, you'll be happy to know that the cast of this series wasn't just a group of co-workers, they actually became lifelong friends. Take LeVar Burton's wedding in 1992, for example. Brent Spiner, who played Data, was the best man, and Sir Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, and Michael Dorn were all ushers. It's amazing to see a group of actors, not only close on screen, but also deeply connected in real life. The wedding was even more special, because the episode Man of the People number 6.3 aired that very day. a neat way to celebrate the special relationships they had built throughout filming. All these relationships are a clear testament to one thing: Star Trek: The Next Generation wasn't just a TV show, it was also an important part of the lives of those who were bonded by it. Maybe that's one of the reasons TNG became an everlasting piece in the hearts of fans. Number 9. Jonathan Frakes and Riker's legendary beard. When you think of Jonathan Frakes and Riker, you definitely can't not think of that bold, thick beard, right? But not many people know that this legendary beard actually started from a spontaneous decision in Season 2 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. At first, Frakes returned with a new beard, and he planned to shave it off before filming began. But wait, the producers saw the beard and felt it was a perfect fit for Riker. They asked him to keep it, and from then on, the beard became an iconic part of Riker's character throughout the series. This beard not only made Riker look cooler, but it also helped cement his image as a distinctive character in Star Trek, especially in Star Trek First Contact 1996. When Frakes finally had to shave it off, there's a moment where Q sarcastically says that Riker was happier before the beard. Maybe that beard had become one of the character's special powers. Do you think the beard was a key part of Riker's unique personality? And is there any other mystery related to Star Trek characters? I'll reveal it in number 8. Number 8. Denise Crosby left the show not out of impulse, but because she felt trapped in an undeveloped role. There are many rumors about why Denise Crosby left Star Trek: The Next Generation. Some people say she was impulsive and unhappy with her work, but the real reason was something entirely different. Crosby shared that she had felt unsatisfied with her role for a long time. She felt trapped in the character of Tasha Yar, a role she initially thought would have a lot of depth and development. But instead, she was just given repetitive scenes, like I, Captain, with no chance to explore the character's complex inner life. So what was the real reason Crosby openly said that she was miserable and didn't want to spend another 6 years in a role that she felt had no opportunity for growth? She wasn't impulsive. She genuinely felt stuck in the part. Number 7. Whoopi Goldberg reached out to ask about appearing on the show before it even aired. Before Star Trek became a phenomenon, Whoopi Goldberg reached out to the production team to express her desire to appear on the series. That's right before the show even premiered. She actively said that she really wanted to be a part of it, which at the time everyone thought was a joke. However, what surprised her was that she didn't get a response until almost a year later. Initially, the production team didn't think her request was serious, and only after some time did they start to pay attention. It wasn't that they didn't want her on the show, but at the time Whoopi Goldberg didn't have a strong reputation in sci-fi TV, and with a show like Star Trek, they weren't sure if a movie star could fit in. Plus, with a new series casting a famous star back then was still considered a pretty risky move. In the end, we all know that Whoopi Goldberg became an indispensable part of Star Trek: The Next Generation, contributing to what made the show unique and special. From a decision to persist and assert herself, Goldberg not only surprised the fans, but also the production team with her talent and charm. What will surprise you next? Maybe insects. Number 6. The Borg were originally described as insect-like creatures. If you're allergic to insects or don't like strange-looking creatures, you might want to skip secret number 6. But if you're brave enough, keep going, because this story will surprise you. Originally, the Borg in Star Trek: The Next Generation were described as incredibly strange insect-like creatures. The designers imagined them as a type of mechanical insect with complex bodies and unique details. Imagine a Borg with pincers' insect legs and every body part connected. However, budget constraints meant this idea couldn't be executed. The producers had to go with a cyborg design with metallic parts and body implants. Not only did this help save money, but it also made the Borg a much more terrifying enemy than they would have been otherwise. What seemed like bad luck turned out to be a blessing. And who knows if the Borg had been insects, would they have been as scary as they are now? Well, I'll leave you to imagine that scenario. But for now, let's count down the final 5 secrets that have been hidden for decades. Number 5. Generations had a completely cut opening scene with Kirk skydiving into orbit. Have you ever thought that a scene with Kirk in Star Trek Generations was completely cut out? Not just any scene, but a really interesting one where he was skydiving into orbit. That's right, originally there was a scene that, if kept, could have completely changed how we view the opening shots of the Enterprise B. This scene was planned as an opening with Captain Kirk retired. He was no longer a captain, and instead, Kirk would land in a field wearing a space diving suit, a special suit for skydiving into orbit. But interestingly, instead of attending the Enterprise B launch, Kirk would declare he wasn't going to attend, wanting to live a more peaceful life. Quite an unexpected opening, right? However, this scene was ultimately cut from the official release of Generations. But the story doesn't stop there. You might not realize that the space diving suit from this scene was later reused in Star Trek Voyager. This very suit showed up in an episode of Voyager and even became part of the design legacy in the Star Trek universe. Number 4. Gates McFadden was pregnant for most of Season 4. If you think every shoot in Star Trek The Next Generation went smoothly, you're in for a surprise when you learn that Gates McFadden was pregnant for most of Season 4. But don't worry, this wasn't something overlooked. It was actually a creative challenge. When Gates McFadden was pregnant, the directors had to figure out how to hide it on screen. They couldn't let the audience see her baby bump, so they got really creative to maintain continuity without compromising the natural feel of the show. The production team used clever techniques, from adjusting camera angles, using looser costumes, to avoiding scenes requiring heavy movement. All of these helped keep Dr. Beverly Crusher's character from being restricted in her scenes. Number 3. VISOR stands for Visual Instrument and Sensory Organ Replacement. You've probably seen the VISOR in Star Trek The Next Generation, the special visual device Geordi La Forge uses. However, not many people know that VISOR is actually an acronym. VISOR stands for Visual Instrument and Sensory Organ Replacement, a device Geordi uses to replace his eyesight and help him see even without eyes. Interestingly, while VISOR is an important concept in TNG, the actual term was never mentioned on screen. Even though everyone knew about the device, its true name was never revealed in the series. Why would a detail like that be left out? Maybe it was to let the audience understand, or to keep the device more subtle in the context of the show. Number 2. Production difficulties caused many issues for the show. Right from the start, Star Trek didn't just face challenges within the storyline, it had major struggles right from the start. Health issues and conflicts within the production team caused a significant impact on the production schedule. Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, was struggling with declining health during production. While he hid his health problems from Paramount Pictures, strokes, high blood pressure, and diabetes had a major effect on his work. This created a lot of difficulties for the show from the get-go. While Roddenberry's health issues were ongoing, he let his lawyer Leonard Maizlish become part of the production process. However, Maizlish caused constant conflicts with the rest of the team, even taking actions like breaking into offices and rewriting scripts without experience. These troubles put Star Trek through a tough challenge, but they also marked an important turning point. However, there's only one last mystery to uncover in the Star Trek story. Let's unlock it and finish the countdown today with the final secret, which will surely surprise you. Number 1. Star Trek almost never aired. You probably didn't think that a famous show like Star Trek The Next Generation would have struggled from the very beginning, right? But here's a surprising secret. Very few people know. Star Trek almost never aired the way we know it today. While there were negotiations to sell the show to one of the big networks, the final decision was made to air the series in syndication across other TV channels. And the reason behind this decision is pretty interesting, because this is how Star Trek actually found its success. But there was another important factor. Gene Roddenberry was still upset about network interference with his show. He didn't want TV networks messing with his creativity, so Roddenberry wanted to work independently of any network. Can you imagine that one of the most successful TV shows in history could have been sold off in such an unusual way? And if it weren't for Gene Roddenberry's persistence and independence, would Star Trek, the next generation, have become the icon it is today? Those 20 secrets are just a fraction of the fascinating things that Star Trek has brought to its fans throughout its long journey. But I can assure you, this is far from the whole story. Only those who followed every episode, every moment aboard the Enterprise, can uncover the deeper secrets, the tiny details that may seem overlooked, but are actually incredibly important to the die-hard fans of the series. So, go ahead and spill the beans in the comments below. Let's turn this into a lively fan meeting and reminisce about all those great memories. Star Trek is not just a sci-fi series. It's a cultural icon with a far-reaching impact. Every character, every scene, even every line of dialogue has been dissected, analyzed, and explored by fans for years. Are there still more secrets about the characters or creative decisions that will surprise us? You might just find them as you continue watching and re-exploring the episodes. And don't forget to like this video so we know you want to learn more about what made this one of the greatest TV series in history. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. Let's continue our journey of discovering the films that helped shape America's golden era and unlock even more secrets along the way.